British prospect Ben Whittaker went on Sky Sports today and discussed several things. Obviously, he has a fight against Liam Cameron coming up on the undercard of Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol. Chris Eubank Jr. is also in action on that card, actually, funny enough, against Sarah Metten. I think it's a Camille Sarah Metten, that how you pronounce his name. Both boxer fighters, both in different fights, but both on the same show. In fact, actually, that's quite a boxer heavy card, isn't it, when you think about it? Because you've also got Fabio Wadley, Fraser Clark. I know Wadley is not a boxer fighter, but Fraser Clark is. You've a couple of boxer fighters. I'm sure I was going to say Ben Whittaker. I'm sure Ben Shalom hasn't stopped smiling since he's seen that. Be like, yeah, I'm on the Saudi shows now. Yeah, you are, Ben. Well done. Well done, well done, well done. About time, about time. About time, boxer actually, got somewhere. It just took 3 years. But there you go. There you go. Anyway, joking about I have to, Ben Shalom, you gotta do it. You gotta do what you gotta do. You know? Whenever you hear Ben Shalom, Shifty Shalom. But back to this, right? So, Ben Whittaker, he has that fight coming up, but also Eubank Jr. is in the undercard. Why am I mentioning that? Because they're both two weight divisions apart. Yes, I know. Well, Boxing Scene have this article here. So, it says, Whittaker and Eubank will both be competing on the undercard of Beterbiev versus Bivol in Saudi Arabia on October the 21st. This will be the first time the pair have shared a ring, shared a stage since a rumoured bout between the two has been discussed. Whittaker, appearing on Sky Sports News, was asked about the possibility of fighting Eubank for the first time and didn't shy away from the clash. Of course, never say never, said Whittaker. He classed it as a sexy fight. I'd say more like Beauty and the Beast. But yeah, of course, you can never say never. It's a good fantasy fight. He's got a great name, and who knows, I'd be up for it. The biggest question around the fight is what weight the contest will be held at, as the fighters sit two weight classes apart. Eubank has been competing at middleweight, but some of his best performances have come at 168, defeating James DeGale, who vacated his IBF super middleweight world title to face his rival back in 2019. I wouldn't necessarily say that was a great performance per se from Eubank Jr. at 168, to be fair. I remember that fight very well. James DeGale was shot to bits and made that fight very easy. Like his game plan in that fight, if you've ever seen it, was bizarre. Like, Eubank struggles with range, and James DeGale kept taking half steps in and closing the range himself. So it's his own fault he got battered in that fight. And, that was a shot to bits, James DeGale, but it was competitive at times. Whittaker, who competes at light heavy, expressed that he would be open to fighting Eubank at a catch weight. It would be a one-off fight, added Whittaker. It would have to be at a catch weight of some sort, hopefully super middle, but if he's game, I'm game. Tell Turkey to set it up. I'm alright with that. Chris Eubank, when he appeared and was asked about this fight, he said, I genuinely have never thought about that. Who knows? Listen, I got up to 190 this year. I don't know how. I've never been that weight before. I'm 34 years old. Maybe the metabolism is slowing down. When I got in the scales, I was 190. Is that light heavy? Who knows? Well, 190 is obviously cruiserweight. So, holy crap, couldn't go from 190 to 160. No wonder he looked so bad against Liam Smith the first time around. And this fight against Aaron is going to be 160. You're 34 years old. I mean, that's I didn't know that actually, that he said that. Now, how true is that? Good question. Do you remember back in the day, when he fought at super middleweight, and he used to try and make out that what he was doing was that Eubank was something incredible because he was undersized, and he was standing on the scales and he was like 12 stone 3 weeks outside camp. Obviously, probably in his skivvies, and God knows if he just come from a big workout or a sauna or something like that. So, he would always do those kind of things, and he would exaggerate a little bit as well. Eubank Jr. has a tendency to do that. So you wouldn't know if that's true. If it is, 30 pounds down to 160, sheesh. And Eubank Jr. is shredded at 160, so there's only so long he could do that. The fight itself, if they did it, you would imagine it would have to be at 168. Whittaker, would they do it at maybe 170? Whittaker agreed to that. Eubank agreed to that, do it at 170. The problem is with that fight, it would... Listen, if Ben Whittaker... Because Ben Whittaker is a potential star in the UK. He really is. A lot of people don't like his showboating. I haven't been mad impressed with his last couple of performances now, I have to say. The main, I think, problem there think he solved that issue now. I think he's with Ben Davison now or someone. But he was with Sugar Hill. He left Sugar Hill, and then in a couple of subsequent fights, he was basically not being trained. He had someone there, but just, they weren't necessarily the trainer. And I thought his performances suffered. He was getting hit a little bit more. He didn't look as good. He just looked disinterested almost. Like he needs someone there to kind of give him a pat round the head and say, get your head in the game and show me something, Angelo Dundee, you're blowing it now, son. You're blowing it. That's what I think Ben Whittaker needs. Him against Eubank Jr. I mean, again, it's a strange one. Ben Whittaker, the up-and-comer, very, brash, arrogant, bit like how Eubank Jr. used to be back in the day when he was about that age. Eubank was obviously very, very different. Ben Whittaker is more the flashy showboater, moves his head, slick boxing, all that. Eubank was just, go on the punching bag, uppercut, go in the ring, combination, fast uppercut, boom, boom, boom. Quite different. But now in their respective careers, Eubank should be looking at world titles. He obviously isn't. But he is looking for big paydays. Would he really go and fight someone like a Ben Whittaker? And how big a payday would you get? I mean, you got to remember, like, Eubank, apparently Canelo, the money he was looking for to apparently face Canelo's team weren't willing to pay it. Canelo's team were not willing to pay it. Turkey is not stupid. He's not going to pay crazy money to do Eubank Jr. versus Ben Whittaker. He's just not going to do it. This isn't Fury Usyk. This isn't Joshua versus Fury. This is Ben Whittaker versus Chris Eubank Jr. A prospect, fairly unproven, against a guy who, well, some would say underachieved, some would say overachieved in terms of how much money he made in comparison to his skill. But that's essentially what we're talking about right here. I don't think the fight will ever happen. I think that is kind of probably Sky just trying to, mention... Like, Sky are desperate to have an in-house pay-per-view, obviously. And for them, that's an in-house pay-per-view. But there's no way in hell that fight's ever going to get made. I see that as no way that fight's ever going to get made. Sky could bring it up to Ben Whittaker all they want, but it will never get made. No way, in my opinion. And Ben Shalom is bringing Whittaker on his path, which is that way, and he's bringing Eubank on his path, which is that way. I don't think there's any reason for them to meet in the middle. I think the only fight... Yeah, for me, probably, Eubank should be looking at world titles, but the only fight I think he's interested in, truthfully, is Conor Benn. That's the only fight I genuinely think he's interested in, is Conor Benn. For whatever reason, they're still interested in doing that fight and flogging that dead horse. 2 years later, they still seem interested in doing it. That's the only thing I can see for Eubank Jr. So, that's my thoughts on that. Boxing Scene article is there if you want to go have a read of it. Whittaker, Eubank. Do you think, or you wouldn't like me and think, maybe that fight might happen? And if it did, if for some reason it happened in the next year, who do you have? Let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always. It's flipping free if you haven't already. Peace.